Break Fix's History of Motorsports series is brought to you in part by the International Motor Racing Research Center, as well as the Society of Automotive Historians, the Watkins Glen Area Chamber of Commerce, and the Argetsinger family.
The Oswego Speedway, located in Oswego, New York, was built in 1951 when original owners Harry, George, and William Caruso converted the one-time Wine Creek horse track into a 3/8-mile dirt auto racing facility. The track was paved during 1952 and remained a 3/8 mile until 1961 when it was enlarged to its current 5/8 mile size. The Oswego Speedway has been a continuously run weekly racetrack since it opened in August of 1951. Dick O'Brien, former public relations and track manager at Oswego Speedway, kicked off this IMRRC Center conversation about the history of supermodified racing, where he spent 40 years in motorsports and spoke to the early history of the track and how it has significantly evolved this discipline of racing. Following his presentation, drivers from Oswego's over 70-year history were invited on stage. Bentley Warren, Warren Coniam, Eddie and Brendan Bellinger, Allison Slode, the only woman to win a supermodified feature, 9-time champion Otto Sitterly, Dave Danzer, and car owner and promoter John Nicotra answered a wide variety of questions posed to them by the voice of Oswego Speedway, Roy Sova. Enjoy this fun and insightful view on how Oswego and supermodified racing has been a major influence in their racing careers.
Welcome to the center conversation, Oswego Supermodifieds, a legacy of speed at the Steel Palace. We've got some outstanding Hall of Fame drivers, future Hall of Fame drivers here at the International Motor Racing Research Center. And to start our program, I'm going to call on Dick O'Brien, longtime track manager at the Oswego Speedway, who was involved in the change from modifieds to supermodifieds and the growth of the supers. Dick?
I think we're going to have a great afternoon for supermodified racing right here. We've got a lot of great drivers, owners, a lot of people that donated to the sport. I'd like a special thanks to the Purdy family for bringing their iconic race car here and making things happen. But what I want to talk about initially is what happened before the supers got there and the changeover into the supermodified division. And Harry, Bill, and George Caruso always loved auto racing. In the late 40s, they bought a modified stock car. They raced it, Sandy Creek and Vernon tracks. Dante Raponi was their driver. The car wasn't very fast. Being the sportsmen that they went out to Chicago to Andy Granatelli and bought a motor from him of STP fame, put it in their race car. It still wasn't very fast. So the next step, they went out and bought the long dormant Wine Creek racetrack, which was located on the site of the Oswego Speedway. And they were going to clean up the dirt track and use it for a practice track so that Dante could pick up the pace maybe and be a little more competitive. Well, this was a period post-war. Racetracks are popping up all over the country. And they says, we're sort of messing with maybe the wrong end of the deal. Let's build a racetrack. So they built Oswego Speedway. It opened in 51 as a half-mile dirt track. They ran 7 races that year. Charlie Berry of Salve won the initial race of her run at Oswego. One of the winners that year was John Teresi Sr. and his son, John Jr. and Eric now own Oswego Speedway. They ran 7 races there. They opened up in 52 with a half-mile dirt track, rough, bumpy, dusty. They were sailing dust all over Oswego. Didn't like it. They shut the place down after 4 weeks, paved it, reopened in August as a half-mile racetrack. The next thing, we had the 3 brothers. Harry was upstairs overseeing the tower and the finances. Bill was good inspecting the cars. He was good with tubing and welding, and he was our inspector. And George Sr. ran the concession stand, and he's the man responsible for bringing those world-famous Hoffman hot dogs to Oswego Speedway. So things rolled along during the 50s, and in 57, 2 things happened. They added a second division. These were for flathead motor stock cars. They were called Bs. And then the overheads that had been running, they were the A cars. And they were the big hitters, you know, Swifty, Irish Jack, Bellinger, Bliss. The A's got a bigger purse than the B's. They were a faster car. Their motors were a little more expensive. At the end of that year, the Carusos decided to run a big race. They had some cars there. They had a decent turnout of fans. So they ran a 100-lap international classic. Irish Jack Murphy won it, won $1,000. So things moved along to 1961. That was a very, very important year in the history of the racetrack. First of all, the track was enlarged to its present 5/8 mile size. So the racing got a little faster. They were having some problem with the B's. The B's had more cars than the A's, and they wanted equal purse. The Caruso brothers talked it over, and they didn't feel that, you know, the A's were drawing the people, and they went back and forth, and finally one night they struck. So the B's come down and blocked the racetrack. You couldn't run any races. Caruso's asked the police to come, and they opened the gate, and they asked all the B's to leave the property. And to my knowledge, I don't believe there's ever been a flathead race at Oswego since that day. They also had a deal where Nolan Swift, who was the top dog with the 10 pins, he built a tube frame modified for the 61 season. By the rules of the day, that was an illegal car. And it kept going back and forth. You know, he kept demanding, you know, hey, let me run, let me do it. So at the end of the year, as a compromise, they said they could run it in the Classic. And the Classic race had been building since '57. It now is the biggest asphalt modified race around. And it was billed as an open competition modified race. So what happened, cars came from Michigan and Canada. These were Supermodifieds, but they came under this open competition rule. The Carusos were in a tight spot. You had a pit full of modifieds, and you had a few supers. What are you going to do? You had a big crowd. Finally, I guess it came down to Harry, and Harry said, I like these supers. Everybody's got modifieds. Around Oswego, Fulton, Utica, Spencer, Lancaster, Shangri-La, Albany, Saratoga, all had pavement modifieds. Harry liked these supers. It was different. He says, let them run. It wasn't popular. They dominated. Bennett, Gordy Johncock, front row. Bennett wins the race. A lot of grumbling fans. So, 62, he opened the rules up. He says, we're going to run supers. Well, that sounded good. The Michigan cars come in. There were no local cars, other than Swifty. He's the only guy that could stay on the lead lap. But Harry put money into the purse. And he said, some of you local guys go out and build some cars or get some cars. And guys were taking the bodies off of cars. Jimmy Champagne was there, had an old 10-pins car. He took the body off in '62 and started his career. He wasn't very good, but obviously he picked up the pace a few years later. And he turned out to be the man up there for many, many years. But he kept putting money into the purse. And now you've got a situation where the field is building. You've got a really good weekly show. The next thing you know, the switch to supers was basically complete. It took a while, but it took money. He had a little motto: money brings cars, cars bring people. And he used that. Even though the crowds weren't that big, once he kept getting these cars, we went from a local modified track to a regional track. Guys started coming in. Todd Gibson, Norm Macker come in from Canada. Bentley Warren comes in from New England. The people like that mixture of the out-of-town invaders versus the local guys trying to pick up the pace. I've been there an awful long time. I was there 40 years at the racetrack. I think the most important decision in the history of Oswego Speedway happened in 1961 when they went against the grain. Well, they basically threw the modified rule book out the window and they brought in the supers. But they followed it up with money and made that class develop at Oswego Speedway. I got one other quick story and then I got to sit down. Roy wants to keep things moving. You know, they were running in the 60s, Saturday night, supers only. 3 heats, 2 semis, consi, 45 lap A main. I was working up there then in the early 60s, 64, 65. I used to talk to Harry. I said, Harry, we got to run a race. We got to something a little different. The classics coming along. I said, well, what would we run? He says, well, we could run USAC sprint cars. They had Indy-type drivers. Rutherford, Branson, Plusky, Unsers were all running sprint cars back then. He wasn't too excited about that, mainly because they never ran in upstate New York. He never saw a USAC sprint car race. I did. I used to go to Reading and go here and there to the races. And then I said, you know, if we ran a race, I think I could get Mario Andretti up here in a sprint car. To an old guard Italian, like the Caruso family, having a Mario Andretti on their racetrack. That was a big deal. He said, Dick, if you can get Andretti up here, we'll run the race. So I said, okay. So I went down to Langhorne to a USAC champ car race. I went up to Mario, introduced myself. I said, we're running a big 100-lap race in August. I said, we'd really like to have you up there. He said, I'd love to go. I got a really fast race car. Wally Muskowski's my owner, and he's good. He said, I got to have some travel money, though. I said, well, what do you got to have? He said, $1,000. Well, 1966, $1,000 was a lot of money. I buzzed right over to the payphone, called Harry up. I said, Harry, I could get Andretti to come to Oswego in August. It's going to take $1,000. He thought for a minute. He says, make the deal. We're ready to go. So I went back, shook his hand. We're ready to go. No contract, no paperwork, just a one-on-one, shake the hand. There we go. August comes. We're upstairs, Harry and I. We're looking off the tower roof, long lines at the concession stand. It's a beautiful day. We're going to sell out the front grandstand. I get a call from Donnie Bartlett, pit sign-in. He said, Andretti's down here. He won't sign in until he gets his money. I said, Harry, I'll run down, I'll get him signed in and get him inside and we'll be ready to go. Harry said, no, you bring him up here, I'll give him the money. I want to meet Mario Andretti. So I bring him upstairs. Harry Caruso, Mario Andretti, shake hands. Next thing I know, they're talking in Italian. Where they're from, where they did, the whole deal. 10 or 15 minutes, back and forth in Italian. I had no idea what they were talking about. And then I get a call from the pits. It's Wally Muskowski. He says, get Andretti over here. They're ready to warm up. They only give you 2 warm-up sections for the sprints. I got to have him over here. So I told Harry, he's got to have his money. So Harry always carried a big wad of bills in his pocket. So he pulls them out, big thick rubber band around him. Takes the rubber band up and it flips open. There's a stack of ones. Takes down to the bottom part, and there's all the hundreds. Andretti's like this. Harry peels off 10 $100 bills. He was in his driver's suit. Takes them, pulls them up, puts it in the zipper pocket, closes it, goes down, sets fast time, wins the 100-lap race. We got him back the next year in 67. And he had the leader car Sprinter with a big Ford 4-cam motor. Dominated, twin 50s, wins them both. He's got his twin brother Aldo there, and they raced for the first time in USAC competition together. Aldo wasn't very good, but Mario put on the show again. So we ended up the deal. Mario Andretti's career record at Oswego was unbeaten. 3 feature wins out of 3. We were, at that time, the top Supermodified track in the country, and having IndyCar drivers and people like Andretti there elevated our status as one of the top pavement short tracks in the country. That's it, folks. The early years of Oswego Speed. Thank you.
Person I want to recognize is one of the former track owners and one of the sons of one of the original owners, Romy Caruso, who's back here. Now the main part of the show. I'm going to introduce all of the people who are down here on our page. I'm going to introduce them in alphabetical order by their first name, which is also ladies first. Ladies and gentlemen, Allison Sloan. Bentley Warren. Brandon Bellinger. Dave Danzer. EB in 83. John Makocha. Otto Sitterly. And Warren Conan. Just to run down a few things. We've got Eddie Bellinger with 2 track championships, Brandon with 1, Otto Sitterly with 9, Eddie Bellinger with 2, Warren Conan, he had 2. And of course, Bentley had 6. Classic wins, Dave Danzer with 1, Otto Sitterly with 5, Eddie Bellinger with 5, Bentley Warren with 6, and Warren Conan with 2. So we've got some high-powered people up here. What we're going to do is we're going to ask questions. We've got 2 microphones, they'll pass them around as we ask questions of the individuals up here on the stage. And I want to start out with Bentley. Ben, you won your first ever classic in 1969 in the Purdy Deuce. What do you remember most about that race?
Winning.
Okay, Allison, next question for you. No, go ahead, Ben. It was certainly a unique opportunity for you, the iconic number 2, and to take it to the win. And then, of course, next year you left the ride. Warren Conan took it over. You went to USAC racing for a while.
Yeah, so what?
Bentley can be like this. He can also be a nice guy. All right, Warren Conan, we'll go to you next.
That's a hard act to follow, you know.
All you got to do is say that in 2 words. We're good. Warren, when you drove the Purdy Deuce, it started out as a small block car. And you talked to the Purdy crew and Howard Purdy and had it converted into a big block. Why did you do that?
Well, I told him the first night I drove the car the week previous to the Classic. I told him this car is a little short on power. And he said, no kidding, it's a 4x4. I said, well, all the cars I've driven are 4x4s and they had more snot than that. So he went home and made a couple changes. He put a big block in it and came back and surprised me the week later with a big block in it.
What difference does it make? Power?
It didn't have a heck of a lot more power than the 4x4. Like a good 4x4 is a pretty good motor. Anyways, it did the job.
Interesting, since you've got the Purdy Deuce, almost never ran a full season. It had under 100 total feature races at the Oswego Speedway, and the average feature finish for that car was a 5.8. Eddie Bellinger, you were the first driver, and I think the only one who made a pit stop and won the Classic. A lot of other drivers have tried it before you and after you, but you made it work that year. I know it was a plan you had going in. Why did you decide to do it that way?
The tires weren't really holding up all that great. We just kind of felt like we just had to do something to get a chance to win.
And did you practice the pit stop?
Oh, the boys did. I didn't.
So they're still doing the work for you now.
All I had to do was pull in and stop. Get it out of gear. Get back in gear.
All right, Brandon, your grandfather was a track champion 3 times at the Oswego Speedway. Your father's been a track champion. You won the track championship a couple of years ago. First ever 2-generation family to win it, the first ever 3-generation family to be track champions. What does that mean to you as a competitor, as a person?
It was definitely a pretty special win. I feel like at Oswego, even winning a heat race is hard, and much less, if you can do anything beyond that. I mean, winning a feature is hard, and to have the opportunity and to be able to deliver in a championship, it's pretty special.
You've got the Classic win as well. Your grandfather never won a Classic.
I don't have a Classic win yet, but I'm going to change it this year. So.
Oh, that's right. All right, Allison Sloan, in last year's Classic, you're the first woman who ever won features at the Oswego Speedway. I know you yourself consider yourself a race car driver, but in the history of Supermodifieds at Oswego, there have only been 3 women who have ever competed. Sheila Hayes, who was quite a few years ago, probably before you were born, Jen Chesbrough, and now you. When you get into a car, What do you think? I mean, does that ever enter in your mind at all?
No, being a woman is not something I consider on the racetrack.
How did you get started? I know you started in what, TQs?
I started in quarter midgets. I was 7, and I raced locally until I was 16, and then I jumped into a 3/4 midget with Lou Sacconi.
And of course, you ran that at Oswego early on. What got you to convert from that to a super modified? That's a big step.
It was Lou Sacconi. He wanted to get out of his ISMA super modified, and he reached out and said, "You've won a track championship in a TQ with the ATQMRA," and he's like, "Here's your next step. Buy my car," and that's kind of where we headed.
Dave Danzer, you come from a long racing family at the Oswego Speedway. They've been there practically from the beginning. Through all those years, they had never won a feature until you started driving. What did that mean to you to be able to put your family's name up a little bit higher at the track?
A lot. I mean, I remember going back in the day and we didn't even make the show. It was huge, and I remember showing up Classic weekend a lot of times and counting cars thinking, yeah, they ain't going to make the race. Moved to the next step's been pretty nice. Hopefully we continue to move up more. It's just been a lot of work and a lot of effort in the garage every night.
Now, Otto, you got your start on the dirt. You had a pretty good career going on the dirt. You moved over to the small block super modifieds at the Oswego Speedway. What got you to make that move?
Probably going to the track. In 1990, the first time watching, my high school buddy sat next to me and we drank Miller Genuine Draft. So needless to say, this guy was one of our picks and Bentley was the other pick. And just watching the cars, the speed, the noise, the thrill, the feel in the grandstands. So yeah, I was racing probably a stock car on dirt then. I think I got to a point where I had to make a decision. I was going to move out of the stock car class and go into a modified type class, and the limited super modifieds came about. So for somebody on the outside, so many kids that race super modifieds now are 3rd generation, 2nd generation. I had no roots. I was basically a relative nobody. I think it was just something that I looked at and said, that's attainable to race a small block super modified. So that's sort of probably what brought me there, was a limited super modified back then.
And then you moved into the super modifieds, which again was a pretty good step. You owned your own car for a while, had a lot of success in it.
Yeah, I ran part years with the small block. I really didn't have the funds, so if I crashed it, I basically was out of business temporarily until I could patch something together. And then, after we won a few races and I had a car that was a commodity, I sold it and did well, and all the equipment. And really, I didn't have to put a lot of money with it to buy out a team. I bought Jeff West's backup car. It was the entire operation. You can't buy an engine today for what I bought that whole entire outfit for. It was not even $20,000. I actually talked to Eddie about his, and they were along the same lines, but there was a lot of equipment that came with Westy's car. So yeah, then we ran, Rookie of the Year in 2000. I won a couple of races here and there. I ran really consistent, and then when the Hawk car came along, and I bought it used, needless to say, that was the right move. I won a lot of races that last year, and basically at that point I was out of money. So pretty much I decided I was going to be finished, and then he hit one phone call. It's been an interesting 18 years.
John, I remember you and I talking on the roof at the Oswego Speedway before you got your deal together with Otto, and we talked about it as being a good choice for you to go in that direction. But what made it your final choice to pick Otto?
The whole plan was to get a car ready for Davey Hamilton if he ever recovered from his serious injuries. And I had talked to quite a few different guys. I was friends with Muldoon, and I talked to Otto, and I talked to this one and that one, and honestly, Muldoon called me one time, and he goes, "Otto's your guy." Because, I was even thinking Muldoon, Timmy Snyder, I didn't know. I was so green. But I knew Otto. Doug Caruso introduced me to Otto, and I watched him. I could see that he was the real deal. Went that way, and I took Muldoon's advice, and it turned out exactly what I would have hoped for.
All right, Dave Danzer, we talked about your family history and everything, and being the first driver in your family to take a car to victory lane. When you first switched to the Super Modifieds, your very first time on the track, was not a real pleasant experience. I think you got 2 laps in.
I think I got about 40 that day, but I think I had 41 on the trip to the hospital. But yeah, there was throttle hung up, And that was actually, I think, that was a furlong car. That's the one he won all the classics with. So that one's a write-off. Yeah, that's how I started. Then I went back to the small blocks.
That was the interesting thing. A lot of people didn't think you would go back to small blocks, you'd take the year off, but you did. You went back to small blocks, put another Supermodified together, and came out the following year.
Yeah, I went back, and then I started talking to Hawksby, and we started putting something together. We spent all winter long, and he really took me underneath his wing, and I just really fine-tuned that thing we did together, and that rookie year we came out swinging. We were really good.
John, you were saying?
When he got the Hummer throttle and crashed that Super first time out, I was coming through the walkthrough gate. He was coming out, and I felt so bad for him. It bothered me right now, but he had tears in his eyes. You know, he's put a lot of work and effort into becoming the Dave Dancer we all know today. He started in a bad way.
Well, you know, the whole family over the years has done a tremendous job at Oswego, putting race cars on the track and having some good drivers, having some mediocre drivers on the track, and now they got one of the best in Dave. Allison, in the Classic last year, well, let's go back to your first feature win at Oswego. I remember talking to you after the race, and you said in the interview at the track that all you had to do was concentrate on hitting your marks. You had the lead, you just had to hit your marks.
Yeah, so consistency has been one of my strong points out on the racetrack, especially at Oswego, and it's pulling off the corner in the exact same spot and entering the corner in the exact same spot every time, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. It worked out for me.
The Classic last year, you were running in second late in the race. At one point, it looked like you may be able to make a pass. I think a yellow flag came out maybe, and that kind of ended your day in terms of winning the race.
Yeah, to be honest, the entire race I was just focused on getting around Dave, and when Barnesy came around both of us at one point, I was like, oh, we're just going to let him run off and, you know, we'll catch him later in the race. I don't know about you, Dave, but I had no idea that he ran out of fuel. So I was so concerned about catching him that I had no idea going into one, we had both passed Barnesy running out of fuel.
And in the meantime, you ended up with a podium finish, finishing second.
Right.
Yeah, great race. Yeah. Now, Dave, in that race, that was a very hot day. And I know a lot of drivers suffered a little bit of heat exhaustion. When you got in your car, you looked a little bit tired. Did that affect you in the race at all?
No, usually once you're in the mode, you can pound the fence and you're probably going to be fine for a little bit until you realize what the hell happened. But I just got out of the car, I threw it away. 30 to go, you see Barnesy driving out of your life, it's kind of like, I just need to free the car up just a little bit, and you got what you got in that race. I mean, you can't really change what you got, and with the way the cars are right now is where you start is where you're going to finish. Our goal was to put the thing on the front row and kind of hopefully stay there all day. Well, luckily I didn't lead all 200 because I had a couple people tell me they were probably going to kill me that night if I did. So luckily Barnesy went around and I had no idea he ran out of fuel. I thought that was Jack Patrick, so I thought it was between me and Allison for second, and I had no idea I won the race till Chuck came across the radio and said, pull outside. That's how I learned.
Now, we've got 3 of the 4 drivers from Eddie B in '83, which Chance started just as soon as you, well, pretty much as soon as you passed for the lead. If you don't remember the race or if you haven't seen it, Eddie B in '83, the last lap and a half of the race, Doug Haberham was running first, Bentley Warren was running second, Warren Coney was running third, Eddie Mellinger was running fourth. Before they came down to the white flag, Eddie was able to get by Warren to take over third. And then this is where the action really started, coming out of the second turn. Now, I had started to say around lap 195 that Haberham was running out of fuel, at which point Doug Caruso said to me, Roy, this is a dog race. You're not going to make it exciting by doing that. Doug Haberham was running out of fuel. Warren, you were running third at the time. Eddie got by you. How did that happen?
I was right close to the back end of Bentley, and when Dougie ran out of fuel, it's sort of freight train, and I got right up into close to Bentley, and I couldn't get out and go around him. Eddie was back far enough that he got a good run, and I couldn't get by them until I let out of the throttle.
Now, I think you told me at one point, other than that in the race itself, you felt otherwise you had a chance to win that feature.
Yeah, well, you always go there, but thinking you're going to win.
Bentley, you were running in the number 2 spot going into that white flag lap. Doug had been running out of fuel. He was bogging down particularly bad coming out of turn 2. You came off the second corner right behind Doug, and he almost stopped. and you ran into the back end of him, which caused you a couple of positions. Is that when Eddie and Warren both got by you?
I didn't want to pass Dougie because he won the thing twice in a row, and they were just taking me as an invitational driver. And the car was running beautifully, and Ed said, pass him, and I didn't answer back. I don't know if we had two-way radios or not. I didn't say anything. I just followed him, and I said, he's going to win. Then when he bogged, I hit him, and that's when Eddie and Warren and all of them got in Eddie B in 83. It was a hell of a win for him, and I was very, very happy for him, and I think I drank half of his beer. But I've done that a lot of times with him.
Now, going into that race, about halfway through it, you thought your car was running pretty badly, had even given thought to dropping out.
Yeah, I was just an average car. In fact, I had a real bad front end shake, so I couldn't really go into turn very hard. One time I actually thought about pulling in, and I thought, well, I'm not going that bad. I'll just stay here and get what I can get. And so that's basically all I was doing the whole race, is just hoping to get what I could get, and just got more than I thought I was going to get.
When did you realize Doug was running out of fuel?
Well, we were at a little bit of distance in there. I actually could see him kind of really slowing down in the turn. And like Bentley said, he conked out and they kind of hit, and it opened up a hole. I just happened to be there, that's all. It was just luck.
I was on Doug's crew that day, and he was running out with 10 to go. We knew it.
Yeah.
You know, but we knew it with 10 to go. He was in trouble. And then whatever these guys ended up doing, that's for the history books.
All right, when we talk about classic wins, Otto, Bentley's got 6, you've got 5. What do you think? I know you've had a couple of shots, and at the end, you had car problems or something, but is 6 doable for you?
I would think so, yeah. Like Warren said, every time you go to the track, any of these guys would say the same thing. If you didn't think you had a shot to win, you wouldn't go. So we have a good car, for sure. We'll see what happens. There's a long time between now and the end of the summer, but just a little side note, everybody's got their stories. You can talk about all the races you've won, and you've done this and that. There's some races that I didn't win that I can't even shake the memory. And one of them is the 2015 Classic. I had a car that was driving itself. It was just a little tight all day, and I mean, it was just on rails. Anybody could have drove this thing, and it got out front, and it just had a nice, it's almost a little too much of a push to it. And I came around a lap, or I think it was 4 or 5 laps to go. 9 laps to go. It was Brian Solis, who's a friend of mine. I helped him along when he was first starting, and no, I think he got a lap flag, but it was 2 or 3 laps in a row, and he really just didn't move, and he was right sort of where I needed to be. My car was tight enough that I had to be careful. And I had a guy signaling me, that had a nice lead, but I still didn't want to just sit there that long. So I went down into one, and this car never slipped the rear wheel all day. And I went to the outside, and then all of a sudden it just stepped, and I turned to the right to catch it. And it did the slowest, longest slide sideways from the exit of 1 all the way over to the exit of 2. And I sat there spun out as the leader. Not many laps to go, a half a track ahead. So if you think that something like that doesn't weigh on you, the wins don't mean anything. Whenever I think of that year, because we gave the championship away too, we won 6 regular races that season and lost the championship by 3.5 points. So those are some memories that I have that don't go away.
Now, Brandon, you got your first feature win a couple of years ago, your first track championship. You're still working on an international classic. When you started the 02, the first car that had the tail wing they're using now, how did that come that you were going to do it, and what did you think about it at the time?
To be honest, I think it was a surprise. There was kind of 2 generations of Supermodifieds at the track at the time. Some cars had more engine offset, other cars didn't. The ones with more offset, they were able to get a lot of air to their tail, which we had an older generation car that we couldn't get that. So I feel like we were competitive, but just lacked a little bit, it seemed like. So I think that's why we got picked. It's just we were a competitive car that we could compare to the newer generation of the Hawksby cars at the time and see how that tailwind compared to the rest. And it was an experiment. I think the way they set it up was wherever we finished, like everyone else got moved up a spot,
Right.
We got paid money, and
I know money and points.
The first night we went to try it was a Friday practice. We got one time on the track, and someone had an engine problem and oiled up the track really bad. So we couldn't even really get up to speed after that. So I think they decided well, you want to try it again the next day? It was kind of an in-the-moment decision, and we were game to try it. And I guess the rest is history. Now that's what we all run. So.
But there's a little change to it this year, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a little bit of an angle change. Definitely going to take away some downforce. I think all of us are probably looking forward to getting to the track and seeing exactly what you got to adjust on your car and how much it's going to change. You know, if it's is it going to slow them down a lot? Maybe it only slows them down with, won't be that much with new tires, and it's more of a slow down with old tires.
Right now, Allison, Otto was just talking about it, that there's always the one that gets away or the couple that get away. Before you won your first feature, you lost a couple when you had a great race car but didn't make it to the checkered flag.
Non-winning Supermodified took me a little bit of time, not as much as I thought originally, to get used to the car because I was used to the ISMA wing and the downforce and, you know, going a lot faster. I remember Otto and Johnny both telling me, like, hey, you can't drive this like an ISMA Super into the corner. And I said, yeah, okay. And I went in the first corner, I was like, oh shit, yeah, I can't drive it like that. So it did take me a little bit of, you know, learning curve, but I try to listen. You know, it doesn't often work out that way, but, you know, I've been very fortunate to race with both these guys, so thankful for that.
Bentley, you won your last classic driving the Jeff West car in 1998, I believe. It was kind of a last-minute deal to get in the car. Nobody expected you to win, maybe not even you. And all of a sudden, there you were in victory lane with your sixth classic.
Well, Jeff gave me, you know, we always say everybody gives you a great car. He gave me a really good car. It was set up for him, and he liked a tighter car than I liked, or a looser car. And I remember taking the front wing off it because it was too loose for me. He did a whole bunch of stuff, changed shocks and everything. And I just rode up there on a quim. He'd asked me to drive earlier and I wasn't going to. And then I called him back and said, yeah, I'll drive if you want him. He said, oh, I already got somebody driving. And I said, oh, okay, well, no problem. I'll just stay home and ride my motorcycle. So then he called me back. He said, well, if you want to come up and drive it, you can. And so I jumped on my motorcycle. I threw my fire suit in Vic Miller's trailer and rode my motorcycle up, and I drove the car. Just kind of a funny win because I think Mike Muldoon lost a rear end. Eddie Shea's car was winning. Came around for the green flag with about 10 to go. I remember I straddled the oil, there was a line of oil in the middle that hadn't got, it was clean, but it still had the speedy dry down. And I straddled it, and Eddie Shea's car went through it. He got a little bit sideways and just gave me enough bite that I could win. And then I think Davey Hamilton was coming up on me, and I could hear him, so my car became very wide.
Now, that race, you time trialed pretty well. When did you think, hey, I got a shot to win this?
I told Jeff after practice, when I went up with the full field load, the car felt awesome. I said, we got a good chance, we got a good car, we can really probably win this race with a little bit of classic luck. And we had the classic luck.
John?
So Davey ended up second that day at the classic, right? The sheet panel was all dented on Bentley's car. He had gotten some kind of tangle and looked like a jump going around there. And Davey comes in after the race, he goes, God, who the hell's in that black car with all the damaged bodywork? I go, you mean the winner? Yeah, that was Bentley. Oh, no wonder he was right. No wonder that car got wide. That guy was smart.
Eddie, when you got started racing, you know, as I said, your dad had been racing at the track for a while, was a three-time champion. As I recall, he didn't know you went out and bought a Todd Gibson car.
No, actually he didn't. Of course, you know, I grew up my whole life around the Speedway. My dad never really, you know, he wasn't the type of guy to just go buy cars and all that stuff. If I wanted one, it was going to be up to me. I'd saved up a little money, borrowed $500 from one of my buddies, and I put $500 on a credit card, and I had some cash, and I called Todd up, made a deal on the phone. I paid an extra $400 for that old single axle trailer he had. I was working for my dad at the time. When my dad got to work that morning, he got there before I did, and Todd Gibson was sitting in the yard waiting. Dad comes out, he goes, what are you doing here? He goes, well, your son just bought this car. I think all he said was,
Now, Warren, you drove for a number of different owners over the course of your career at the track. We mentioned earlier you were in the Purdy Deuce, got a feature win in that car. You drove it for 1 year, and then the next year you switched. You went to somebody else. Why was that?
Howard wasn't going to run a full schedule, and I wanted to run a full schedule. That's why I, changed rides.
Who was the best owner you had?
That's not a good question.
They think it is.
I drove for so many great people, a lot of Rutledge dates, you name them. I drove for a lot of good people, came out of it with a lot of great friends, and what more can you ask for?
And you drove 25 years and then pretty much just walked away.
Yeah?
It was not too many races after your last Classic win.
It was the Classic win when I retired. That year I got driver of the year. You know, they had the banquet at the end of the year. I got driver of the year and a few accolades. And I'm thinking all the time, you know, Ryan, my son, wants to start racing karts. I thought, you know what, a fellow doesn't get a chance most times to go out with a Classic win. I got up to say a few words at the banquet. My wife had gone to the washroom, and I was supposed to drive the following year with Joe. And
That's Joe McGarry.
Yeah, I just got up, and all of a sudden the words came out of my mouth. That was my last race. And my wife was standing at the back of the hall, came down, I sat down at the table. She said, "So now what do we do on Saturday nights?"
And I believe your response was roll the window and throw $500 out.
Yeah, that was about it. And I don't regret a minute of it.
Now, a lot of drivers retire and then come back and run a race or a couple of races or start racing over again. You have never done that.
No, well, I did drive the race, well, not a race, an event up at Cayuga Speedway when Brad Litke had bought the track, and they had a bunch of old race cars. And a buddy of mine, well, Al Webster, who owned Gary Witter's car, right? Al Webster bought an old Teddy Hogan car. And I don't know whether you remember Teddy Hogan, but he did run Oswego years ago. Mm-hmm. But anyway, he bought this old Teddy Hogan car, and he asked me if I would drive it in this race. So I said, well, yeah. And Ryan looked at it, and I always looked at race cars that Ryan was going to drive, and I'd say, no, Ryan, you're not getting in that race car. And Ryan went over and looked at it, he says, Dad, I wouldn't. So I said, that'll be fine. It's just, you know, warm-up sort of thing. A buddy of mine was Bernie Reddick, had built a brand new Jimmy Howard car, exact replica of Jimmy Howard's, for Howie Scandal to drive. So Scandal wanted to race. We get out there, we start racing, going faster, and this car, this Hogan car that I'm driving, is going down the straightaway, and it's like from one wall to the other. And I'm just saying, please throw the checkered flag. Like I was getting nervous. They threw the checkered flag, and I went to pull in the pits, and the Pitman arm fell off. So I'm in the pits, and I said, Al, the nut for the Pitman arm came off, and the Pitman arm fell off. And he said, oh, well, he says, I'll see if I can find another nut. And I said, no, the one behind the wheel's done. I'm going up there in the tower to drink beer.
Yeah, Eddie?
I got just another Warren Cody nut story. I'm pretty sure it might have been a Classic. I can't remember. He'll verify this. The caution's out, and he's in front of me, and all of a sudden, this wheel nut comes up and lands right in my lap. What the hell? Where the hell did that come? I'm hoping it's not mine. Well, pretty soon, about a minute later, his left rear, I believe it was flying, so that it was his. Luckily, we're under caution.
All right, Dave Danzer, you had a pretty decent year last year, winning the Classic, and then going out to Vegas and winning the East-West Shootout, $5,000. What made you decide to go and do that race?
I talk to Doug Kells every once in a while, and he kind of got in my ear, and I got a little one coming in June, so I just found out, and I go, hey, I don't really want to stop racing, I just want to go do something wild. I talked to my father, I said, hey, let's go to Vegas and try running, and he looked into it as well, and we started getting the car ready.
I've heard the story, you can verify it or not. Early on in the race, you lost your radio, it was down on the floor, and you turned in some pretty erratic laps while you were trying to get it back.
Yeah, I was swerving all over the place. I was afraid to tug on it. I usually clip a radio over on my left side, and you always tighten your belt. As soon as I did, it fell, and then I got caught underneath the fuel filter. So it took me about 8 laps to get that thing out of here, but I was up against the wall. I looked drunk, I'll be honest. It was pretty bad. It was some pretty bad 8 laps, and then on the restart, I said, all right, time to get focused, and I just buried the top, just kept that thing wound up, and just drove around everybody.
Now, there's going to be a rerun of that race this year in California, and there's also going to be a kind of an East-West shootout at Caraway Speedway in North Carolina. You going to go to either of those?
As of right now, we're going to hit them both.
Good. Brandon, what about you? You gonna hit some out-of-town shows?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll probably hit a few this year. We don't have like an exact schedule or anything. We're probably just moment decisions, almost like how Dave was for the Las Vegas race. You know, that if the car's in good shape and it's an opportunity to go, you know, it's something we'll probably consider taking in. You know, if for some reason our car is all smashed up, well, that complicates things to make another race. So
you're making that decision based on Dave's success last year?
There's a few people that have actually done it now. I mean, Naples have had success with their car going to, you know, some ISMA races. Dave had success with his going to ISMA races. And even for ourselves, you know, we went to Evans Mills last year and kind of solved some of our heating issues that we've had with the top wing. And we didn't win the race, but it was a pretty good run, and I think there's a lot of room for improvement. So it definitely gets you motivated to take your car and do some more racing with it, you know, with different rules and different organizations.
Allison, on your roll cage, it says Chick. Where did that come from?
It's been my dad's nickname for me since I was a kid. And Johnny adopted it as well. So there's two people in this world that can call me Chick. It's Johnny and my dad.
Now, I know there's some question about what your plans are for this year.
I've been told before that Johnny and Otto want to downsize, so they officially did it this year and shipped my car off to Canada. They want to focus on running ISMA and the wing shows and everything that Johnny's put together, so I'll take a backseat to that, to the champ, right? And he can go win some races for the team, and I'm going to enjoy a little bit of the shore this year and getting to travel not to Oswego. I'll hit the track every once in a while, but I'm looking forward to having the summer off.
Okay, but I don't see this as an end.
You never know, Roy. You never know.
Bentley, now here's another story I heard that maybe only you know the true answer. When you first got into racing, you were building your first race car, a modified or something like that, and you weren't a very good welder at the time. And you finished welding something and were working underneath it and it fell down and knocked you out.
I was working on a farm in Essex, Mass, 14 years old, and riding my bicycle after work, which we got done milking cows and stuff, around 3:30, so I'd go up to Danvers, which is about 15 or 20 miles away, and I was welding the roll bars and bumpers and all that stuff on my car. Long story short, a guy welded a wheel for me, offset wheel. I was wicked proud. Put a Buick tire on it. It was a blown out tire, but I put a patch in it, and I looked like a real big time racer. Went out in practice and I blew the right front tire, and the car went off the bank and hit the telephone pole. My back bumper fell off and went under the car. The right front wheel of the guy welded stayed on, and the front bumper stayed on, and a roll bar that was on the back of the roll cage hit me in the head, shoved my head through the shifting lever. They carried me up to the hospital at 14. And when I got to the hospital, the nurses were all PO'd because what the hell's this kid doing driving a race car? they were ticked. They made me sit there gleaming like a stuck pig. But that was my first race car.
All right, now Otto, you've as I said earlier on this, you've had a tremendous career at Oswego, 9 track championships, an all-time record, and of course your 5 classic wins. You haven't raced full-time at Oswego the last couple of years. You've done some ISMA MSS racing. You got a title there. What's your plans for this year?
Nothing's written in concrete. This guy's got the 5 race series. The first 2 races are his races, so we'll be there, the opener, with the car we call now Betty. It's blue. That was Joe Moriarty's old car. Great car. That's the car that Al ran the last 2 seasons that she ran for us. And then the next week is the ISMA show. At Oswego, his race. And then really, if the opening night goes good, we could be there the 3rd night with the small wing again. See what happens from there. I'm not going to say that it's impossible that we couldn't run every race, but I don't know that.
I was talking to John a couple of months ago or so. You had the lead going into the ISMA final, didn't you, this year?
Last year, yeah.
Last year.
We had the point lead the last 2 shows. Oh, so many things, so many thoughts, because, you know, like if you have one Supermodified, that is so nice. If you crash it really bad, maybe you're handy, maybe you can fix it, maybe you can put it back together, spare parts, what have. If you had 3, that's like, is it really nice? Is it 3 times as nice? It's probably not. It's 3 times the work. It's set up for a race car times 3. There's so much to that. I know it's very unfortunate to have the equipment that we have, but sometimes I feel like it also maybe holds me back, having the workload and the responsibility of not just physically taking care of it, thinking about all of it. You know, like Brendan was saying, you know, they're looking forward to putting a wing on their Oswego car. You know, you look at like the A-bolts. one car, and you can massage that car, and you can learn it and get better and better and better with it. So we acquired another car late in the season. We sort of thought we wanted an engine because we've had some restart problems with our wing car, and we ended up with a whole nother package. So great car, great equipment, but that's the one concern I have at this point is I'm 56 years old. You know, I work a day job, and I come home and I work an entire another job.
And you're also down a couple of people that would crew with you.
Yeah, we've got, you know, there was a guy named Fish, he's retired, he's 83 years old, he just doesn't want to do it. Wiedemeyer, same thing, older, Tinney, older, they're just not around anymore. So guys that were in the shop that, I don't know how old, but these guys were workers. You know, this Fish and Weed and those guys were really hard workers. They weren't really a mechanic, but it's repetition. Week after week, you pick that car in the air and you peel the body. And they learned what to look for, and cleaning a super modified. You would think it rides around on a pavement track. It gets just as dirty as any dirt car in a different aspect, in a different way. So the maintenance program, really, to have a car run every lap of every race, and we've had seasons that we literally finished every lap of every race.
Now, Warren, through your career, you mostly ran for other drivers, so you didn't have to go through what Otto went through with the constant maintenance of a car.
I built my own cars in the start, and I really didn't enjoy that. I didn't like working on it, but I was capable. I found it a lot better to show up with my helmet and my bag and get my percentage off the top. That was pretty nice. And, you know, my time was my own. Now, I worked on Ryan's race cars, never excited about it, but you do it for your kid. I mean, a lot of guys really get a lot out of it, though. You know, I know a lot of drivers that really enjoy working on the race car. I mean, I know my son, he really enjoys working on his race cars, not me.
Eddie, you have been behind the wheel of the two-seat Supermodified. In real terms, it's a real race car. It's just an extended Supermodified, little things different to put a person in the back seat. But I remember that I think the first time we did the Ride with the Legends series, down by the start-finish line, and you're on the track, and I hear this loud squeal of tires, which finally stops, and I ran down and I said to you, Eddie, what broke? You said, just me.
I'll be honest with you, that scared the crap out of me. And the guy behind me, you thought he just won $1 million. He was so thrilled. He wanted to do it again. I said, no, not today.
Right, John, Otto was talking about the series, the Challenge series, that has started, you know, you've had great success with it. Honestly, it's helped to save Supermodifieds. How did you get started with that?
You know, a bunch of the fans and car owners got together when things were kind of, MSS had their series, Oswego had their schedule, ISMA had their schedule, and nobody was really breaking down the doors, you know, with an abundance of cars. So, you know, I got some owners and fans together, and we put some sponsorship together to help out the speedways, you know, subsidize some of the purses and point funds and stuff like that. That's really how, just trying to help pay. Speedways can only do so much. In today's world, you know, everyone has so many things that they can do on a Saturday night. Crowds might not be, well, they're certainly not what they were years ago, as where Harry Crusoe generated money. But in today's world, you got to try to find the money somewhere else. Or, like Dick O'Brien said, money bring cars, and cars bring people. You got to have the money in the cars first. And
well, you've come up with some unique ways to get money, like businesses paying to sponsor the draw.
Yeah, Davey Hamilton actually gave me that idea, and I'm thinking, you're crazy. Well, then I tried implementing it, and it was pretty successful. You know, you take in $30,000, you pay out $5,000, and keeps $25,000 for the points. You know, each guy pays like $500 a night to be a pill sponsor.
Right.
And if their driver wins, they win $1,000. So, you know, it gives the sponsor a little something to root for and involve them, and they know they're helping. And I mean, let's face it, you know, that's what we all want to do is help, keep supers alive and the tracks alive, and you got to try new stuff, and that's how it started. This will be our 3rd year. I think it's been very successful, but I feel like we're only on second base.
Well, it certainly helped bring ISMA and MSS together where they were way apart.
Well,
and Oswego's in the mix as well.
That had to happen, and with the scheduling is the most important thing. After that is the money. Once you get to scheduling, everybody working together, and put the money up, then, you kind of got to let us take its course. Like I was saying a minute ago, I feel like we're on second base. I need that one big corporate sponsor to get us home. We're looking, but so far, no check.
Bentley, going back to the two-seat Supermodified, you were one in the first group that did a ride with the legends, and we auctioned you off to the highest bidder. And it came down to Chris Hagerty and Bernie Finnegan, and the bid was $650 by Chris. Bernie apparently missed what was going on and lost the last call on it, so Chris was going to get the ride. You went over to Chris and said, if Bernie also pays $650, do you mind if I give him a ride too? And Chris said, yes, as long as I go first. It was just a great idea, a great thing for you to do that day.
Well, I just wanted to help the fund. I think it was a cancer fund, wasn't it, something like that?
Yeah.
It's a passion that I think all of us drivers and everybody in the room has a passion for helping things like that. And I just thought if it helped, I'd do it. And I did it, and it worked out well. We had fun. I don't even think I came off the track when I was supposed to at one time. I think you guys were throwing the checkered flag, then you threw the red flag, then somebody ran out in the middle of the tracks. What the hell's this guy doing?
Did you like that car?
Yeah, it was fun. It was a race car.
I remember the last Supermodified you were in, the number 15, the Napa car, and it was really kind of a boat anchor. You weren't going anywhere with it. And I said to you, Bentley, you can use the two-seater, it's faster.
I probably agree with you. I know the other 15 car was a good car, but it just wasn't fit for me for some reason. They changed it, tried to make it better, but it just didn't work. And I said, wow, I must be all done. Then I got in a couple other cars and won again. So I said, well, maybe I'm not. So I was happy to have a chance to drive something else after that.
Now, Otto, going back to you in maintenance and everything like that, working a full-time job, a lot of people really don't understand what goes into maintaining a quality race car and putting it on the track. It's more than just getting in the car and driving it.
Yep, yeah, a lot of work. Your last question too, yeah, we were leading the ISMA points.
Right.
And we decided, we tested at Evans Mills the week before the race, took our ISMA car and the new John McKennedy car, ran them both basically back to back. I didn't really fit properly in the El Grasso, we called it the El Grasso car. It felt like the car was it had a really nice feel, and the engine was really what we've been looking for. We opted, all of us, it was unanimous to go with that car. And ironically, probably a $3 part broke fuel injection nozzle. It's like a long extension. During the race, it may have been busted and been floating on top of the intake valve. Somebody broke and the red flag came out, they cleaned the track up. And we were fifth at the time, but the car felt really, really good. I think, 100 laps, it was only maybe 15 or 20 laps in. But we really just needed to be around the top 10 somewhere to finish the point deal. And when they went to push the car on the restart, it may have gone from here to that paper and locked up. Right. And that was it. So, ironically, all this maintenance you're talking about, it wasn't our car. It was somebody else's work, and it broke. It took us out of contention.
Well, John told me that was the first time you were ever in the lead in points going into the last race and didn't take it.
That's right. Yeah.
Eddie, talking about race cars and maintenance, was it Trevor who drove the other Super?
Jared. My son Jared.
He had just a horrendous crash on the front straight.
Yeah.
And I know you spent many, many, many hours trying to find out what had happened to that car.
Well, we actually kind of stumbled onto it. We didn't really know at first until I started looking at it. Basically what happened was, it was kind of a Hyman's fault, but it was a little bit my fault too, because I had a washer, just a safety washer over in behind the Hyman, just in case it ever pulled apart. And then my washer was a little bit too small, so the Hyman actually came right off. So I'm sure that's what happened, because nothing was even bent right there where that came apart. But
Has he ever thought about racing again?
I'm sure he probably would if I said, there you want to go, but we don't have.
I can't race, I need a crew.
He's our driver, so my kids are my crew. So.
And back to Dave, talking about things that happened like that with your stuck throttle. It's just one of those things that you can't go into a race and say this may break because you think it's all set before you ever get in the race car. And when you get in the car, you think it's going to having some trouble.
Yeah, we were trying to get the car to run for like 3 days. It ended up being a mag issue. So the entire time we thought it was injection, so we kept screwing with an arm, and then the arm stripped, and my father had an arm sitting on the wall. He goes, hey, this will work, and he put it on, and it lasted for a little bit. It came loose, so you learn your lesson pretty fast with these things. So every time I go out the back pick gate, I always give it some throttle, and first thing I check, make sure that throttle comes back.
Now, Allison, you haven't been in, I don't think, any real serious crashes at Oswego. Have you been in any bad crashes? One? John says you've been in one.
Yeah, one that basically totaled the car. That was me driving ahead of myself, actually. We were going into turn 1 and the start of a heat race on, like a July afternoon, and I was worried about making it to the corner first and wasn't paying attention to the 2 cars that were in front of me. And I clipped Joe Gosik's left rear with my right front, which ultimately broke the whole front end on me, and I shot off into the turn 1. And my husband likes to joke that he's never seen a race car accident take out so many appliances within the house, because it took out the dishwasher and the laundry machine and the vacuum cleaner all in one swipe. So I was pretty sore after that. Put my head down and get to the shop and fix what I broke, because it was 100% my fault.
Did you ever think about giving up after that?
Absolutely not. No, never a consideration. It was more, how quickly can I work in the shop and with the guys to run parts and pick up body panels and do my piece of it so that Otto could put the car back together in the shop.
So, in all fairness, it was her fault, but the week prior to that was a wing show, and she ran the car with a wing. And what did she say about her first time when we told her, you can't go in the corner that way? So she just ran the week before with that car with a wing, and it's entirely different. And she went out and was the first lap of the heat race. And she just was after it. So, I mean, she still was sort of a little bit, it was the very next race that happened. So chalk it all up to experience.
Warren, I know we've talked about you retired and never really thought about going back, but when you look at some of the cars today, the way they have evolved, have you ever thought about just getting in to try one and to see what it was like compared to the ones you drove before?
No, not really. I mean, Ryan said that car that he had, he says, take it out, Dad, see what you think. But no, when you quit, you quit. And when I drove that car of McGarry's, that's when they were starting to evolve. Like Muldoon's was a better car. A lot of them had more downforce. I just thought, now you're done. I don't think you ever go back.
Well, I just meant to not race again, but just to drive it, just to see.
No.
That's fair enough. What about you, Eddie? You ever thought about getting back out just to driving your own car?
One time, Brady, he couldn't get to the racetrack. He was living out of state at the time. He just put the motor together, so I just wanted to run it just to make sure it was okay. So I went out there. First, he's on the phone going, Jesus Christ, he's going on kind of slow. And then when I came in, I said, you know what? I remember why I quit.
Just a cap of that. We were racing, my son was racing a modified up at Flamborough Speedway. And it was raining and everything else. And Junior Hanley, I'm sure you've heard of him, was there giving us a hand.
He's raced Oswego.
Yeah. Ryan was off somewhere, and the cars are ready to go out on the track. My wife says, Warren, you better move the car up. It's in line. They're in line to go up to the track. And it was a big race. So I said, well, Ryan can move it. She says, no, you got to move it. So I said, well, all right. Put my leg up to get in the car, ripped the ass out of my pants. I said, I'll never get another race car again.
I started to go to Dave. Obviously, I said you had some success in the small block Supermodifieds and moved into the Supers. Were you surprised at your success in the Supers?
Yeah, because everybody tells me I was the worst SBS driver of all time.
But they hadn't meant like Bruce.
But our SBS career wasn't very good, but the super career, you put yourself around good people like Furlong and Coxby. They took me underneath their wing and they guided me all the way. I mean, I was going over there some nights where I go out and run top 5, and I go over to Greg would put the thing on, or the tape, and he'd sit there and yell at me for 45 minutes. Then he'd put his lead race on, where he goes from 18th to 1st, and he starts screaming in my face. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Because he was just so out of control, but he was an awesome coach to have, and now he's got Taylor Hawkskinner.
Yeah, he has helped not only you, but a number of other drivers, and he does it kind of quietly. He doesn't make any big deal about it.
No, he's humble at times, but when he wants to get his point across, he'll definitely get his point. So,
well, I've seen him in that mood.
He talked me through my first win. Was a Holbrook blew up with like 2 laps to go, and I was leading. And throws a red flag, and Gozik comes rolling up next to me and gives me a little wave. And that just got in my head, and Greg comes out and starts, just hit your marks. That's a big thing. Try not to overreact and be smooth with the throttle, don't light them up, and just hit your marks. I think Joey Payne took out Otto that night, so it made things a little easier. But it just worked out.
When you had the car, you got your first feature win. I know your dad, Craig, as I said, family has been involved in racing all the time. He was, let's just say, very emotional with you in Victory Lane.
Yeah, I mean, he started in '86. He traded a boat for a race car. All them years going in there, and I think they had maybe 2 top 5s. So our rookie year, we came out, we were really fast. There was like 3 weeks where I should have won, and we kept having mistakes, and we just didn't think it was going to happen. And it was just a lot of relief to have all these years, to put all your time and effort into everything, and finally you come out on the good end.
And you've won a couple dozen since then.
14.
Yeah. Brandon, same thing with you about winning your first feature in a Supermodified. You haven't driven anything else before that, right?
No, just a Super.
Like any other driver on the stage, you probably lost a couple of races before you won your first.
Yeah, actually, I think the week before my first win, we had a real good run going. It was actually, I think it was the first time they did retro night. I was actually racing Muldoon too, ironically enough, and we were both going for the lead, and we made contact and kind of bent our right front up, so it didn't go very good after that. It ended up not finishing good. We ended up winning the following week, I think it was, and it was definitely, it's a feeling of relief. Like, there was a period for me, like, when I first started, it was kind of the older, like, shovel tail Super, and we had some pretty good runs towards the end of the year. We did some Mishap racing and built our own car, and when we built our own car, it was kind of a struggle. Like, we weren't even working on handling problems sometimes. We had so many other problems, and not a lot of great finishes, and certainly, like, you get your first win, especially, like, for me, I saw my dad win 1 million races. It's like, Jesus, I'm at the back of the field. I gotta do better. So when you do finally get going good and get your first win, I mean, it's a feeling of relief, excitement, all the above.
Allison, the same question that we talked earlier about. You lose some before you win some. Once you win your first. It's a tremendous confidence builder.
Yeah, it was. I had really big shoes to follow with Otto, so I didn't want to disappoint the team. And I kind of, on a whim the year before, we were getting out of ISMA racing, and my dad and I didn't really want to put in the time and the effort to work on a car anymore and travel as much as we were doing. So we saw that, I guess Schulich jumped out of Johnny's second car. I had never spoken a word to Otto or Johnny before my dad made the phone call after the Classic one year and said, "Hey, heard you have an opening, can we come run?" And I'm sure, I don't know what Johnny was thinking, but obviously it worked out. So I had really big shoes to follow, and I was just happy that I could prove myself in that sense.
Bentley, 1971, I think, or 70, I think you went USAC racing, and you had a crash that put you out of racing for about a year.
I was running a sprint car. It was just kind of a bad wreck I had, and I ended up in the hospital for a while. And actually, Mary Purdy saved my foot, because she was a nurse or a technician in the hospital, and she was in the hospital when I was in the emergency room, and they were going to chop it off, and she said, "No, wait a while." And I said the same thing, and ended up the doctor in Toledo, Ohio, fixed me up pretty good so I could drive again, and I could ski again, and I could do all kinds of stuff. So I had to thank Mary Purdy and Howard Purdy, and I just wanted to say one thing about people were talking about early driving, and the first time I drove Howard Purdy's car, it was a thrill, a huge thrill, and I had huge shoes to fill, like a lot of people here from Brandon, trying to fill his father's shoes and stuff like that, and I was trying to fill Otto's shoes, but I was trying to fill Ronnie Lex's shoes, which were impossible to fill. But the first time I drove the car was in practice. The green flag wasn't out yet, and I was so nervous that my throttle was going, like that. And finally, they threw the green flag for the practice. And I thought I was going to break a drive shaft or a U-joint or something in the car. And It was just such a wonderful car to drive.
All right, Otto, since you're holding the microphone, I'll ask this question. It's from Dan Valinsky. Is there any race that you can recall that was just a lot of fun? You enjoyed that race more than any other race you've been in?
Oh boy. Anytime you win, but usually, you know, all the work you put involved, the fun factor really is about an hour time window at the end of the night when maybe you think you have the race won and it happens, and then you and all your buddies are celebrating, and that might last about an hour. And then you work for a whole week to try to go back to get that hour again.
Yeah. What about you, Eddie? Favorite races? Now, obviously, Eddie being 83 has got to be at the top of your list.
Well,
but
almost every race you win is just fun. I don't even know if you could. Probably 83 was just because there was so many people that never left. There was like thousands of people that never went home. They just stayed. It was just a weird situation. Just a minute ago, you mentioned Dan Valinsky's name. You know, his dad built a lot of Supers back in the day.
Right.
A lot of people know that.
Warren Coney, going along with the same vein, what about you and the most exciting race you ever had, or the best win, the best field you got?
Every win is great. My first win at Oswego with the Rutledge car was great, of course. Seeing the smile on their faces. The rear engine car, Champagne's, was probably the most fun I'd had in a race car. I mean, I knew it was fast, you know, when I was warming it up. But just to get to drive for people like Champagne, calling you and ask you to drive it. Kempton Dates, he came off a winning championship and puts me in his car. And I drove for a lot of great people. And I came out of racing with a lot of good friends, friends sitting right here in this room today. Makes racing all worthwhile.
What about the Champagne car? That race really ended the rear engine cars at Oswego. Had you not had the leak in it with 15 to go, it was the obvious winner of the race. To watch you, it was an effortless race. I mean, you didn't seem like you were ever in trouble, that you were battling the car, ever having a problem with it?
No, I mean, that car would just go anywhere on the racetrack. You know, you get up in the dirt near the fence and the car's in the fence normally. That car would go anywhere. Hats off to Jimmy, he came up with a great piece.
Do you think the rear engine cars totally should have been banned?
To run rear engine cars with roadsters would probably be tough. At that time, there wasn't a lot of people capable of building a car like that, I don't think. Been a lot of rear engine cars that have been tried and just didn't finish. I would guess they probably came up with the right idea. Probably going back, Roadster that Jimmy Champagne is the one that's really made antiques out of most of the cars when he came up with the radically offset Roadster.
Well, then that's one of the reasons why the track decided to ban their rear engines at that point, because the Champagne car had just revolutionized Supermodifieds. People were still trying to catch up with that, and now here's another one that they had to try to catch up to, and it was much more sophisticated.
Well, like Eddie and I used to joke, we had, 12-inch offset race cars, and all the guys were running 19s. When we'd finished, one or two or three in the feature, we used to joke about having the best antique in the field.
All right, Eddie, every track has some good rivalries. Not every driver has a rivalry, but every track has some good rivalries. And at Oswego, you had a good rivalry with Steve Joya, to the point where when the two-seat Supermodified came out, I asked you to drive the car, and you said you would. And I went and I told Steve and Pat that you were going to drive the car. And Steve said to me, "How did you get him to do that?" I said, "He likes me."
This is true.
Right, but what about rivalries? I know you had one with Steve. Anybody else?
I never really, I think we all have a weekly rivalry, but sooner or later, we all get over it. Being mad at somebody forever is a lot of work. So, I don't really carry that stuff on forever.
Dave, anybody you'd like to beat on the racetrack, the one person you want to finish ahead of, no matter it's 10th or 15th or 1st?
Otto. I mean, I think everybody down in Oswego looks to beat Otto. He doesn't race there weekly, but he's still the guy that you want to go in and beat. You look down, you don't turn one. That's the best in the business in one. So if you beat him that night, you're partying pretty good. But.
Brandon, what about you?
I don't know. I'd say every competitor, really. I mean, there's even right now, there's still a lot of fast cars, fast drivers, hardworking teams. I mean, I don't know if I can single one person out that I want to make sure I beat, because I kind of like other people have touched on earlier, when I go into the night, I want to win the race, and so there's a field of cars that you're going to have to beat to do that. So
2024, you'll be racing at Oswego. What are your other plans?
Well, definitely going to focus on Oswego. That's something, we've done for years and we're going to do again this year. Running the last race at Evans Mills last year kind of gave us an opportunity to finally cure a heat problem that we've had in our car, and the foot box just getting too hot and burning off. So I guess having solved that and finishing a race with a wing on for once, I think it gives us a little more optimism to put the wing on a few times. And as far as picking it out, it's kind of something like for us having one car, it just sort of depends on how the week prior goes. If for some reason our car ends up all smashed up at Oswego, well, that complicates going to a wing race after that. So for us, it's easy to decide in the moment. We're last minute on everything anyway, so.
Okay, Dave Dancer. Same question. What are your 2024 plans? We talked about you're probably going to go to California, maybe Caraway, and the Oswego Speedway. Is that about it?
Yeah, I plan on running a full Oswego schedule, the Oswego wing and the ISMA wing. I'd really like to maybe hit the high miler and maybe run lead too. Try to support as many super shows as we can. So that's the plan for right now.
Okay, Otto, plans are a little flexible, but you're going to be at Oswego at least for the first two shows. You run ISMA, MSS.
Yeah, if we were successful the first 2 weeks, then we would probably try to go till maybe Johnny says, stub our toe kind of thing. Just going to Berlin and all those places with work, with travel, with help, really tough thing. We've done it the last 2-3 years in a row, so we want to race, but it's just, work commitments, all that. We're going to just have to take it week by week. I'm not going to rule out running every race that we could run, but we have to see.
And the high miler, Sandusky, you'll be there?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. That's about it. I'm going to start with Allison and come across one by one. Just any last thoughts on super modified racing here today? Anything?
You asked earlier about a really fun race. It wasn't a race that I won, but it's a race that I raced Otto against in an ISMA Super at Oswego. The best part of it was hearing the entire crowd boo him after I got out of the race because they thought that he was jumping the start, and I actually had a stumble in my motor, and it ended up being a fuel pickup issue, which the crowd didn't know that at the time. They just had thought Otto was kind of being Otto. And it was we had a really great time after that race, busting balls and having a good time, and that's just something that's always stuck in my mind with racing.
All right. Bentley, thoughts on your career?
I've had a hell of a lot of fun, met a lot of friends, and I did all my businesses came from learning stuff that I learned on race cars, all my friends, and it's just been a wonderful career. Knowing all these people and doing all the racing and meeting everybody, I can't ask for anything more.
Okay, don't give the mic away yet. All right, Brandon, last thoughts from you.
I'd like to ask Bentley and Warren Pony a question. So, for me growing up, watching my dad race, he made no mistakes at all. He was perfect. So, I guess from another guy's perspective, as two guys that race against him, do you have any dirt that you can give me? Eddie Mellinger, what was that move? What was he thinking?
Eddie was very, very clean, a good racer, and I enjoyed racing. This is what you always say when you retire. If it was like 1980 something, I say, what an asshole he was. No, he was always a good guy. Actually, everybody I raced with was wonderful. You had your heated moments of the day, and I'm sure Eddie had some with me because I remember him talking to me in funny ways, different ways. But no, we had our racing incidents because we both, like Brandon says and Allison says, everybody wants to win. You go there with one thing in mind. You want to pass the car in front of you, and if there's another car in front of him, you want to pass him. And that's what you're trying to do, so you get PO'd and people that are in your way. Even though they're not in your way, they're going faster than you. That's what they're doing there. So that's about it.
Dave, last thoughts for Rams? Have you got more?
No, I was just wondering if Warren Conium had any dirt, maybe too. But maybe yes, maybe no.
I bet he does. Maybe you tell the story. Maybe you better. I'll tell the story because I'll tell the truth. Anyways, it was mine 2 different times. Well, here we are, we're up to Cuba.
It was your fault.
I'm running third, right? I'm running third. Well, at that time, back in those days, we always had a passive flag and everything. So here I am third. The race is going on. The passive flag's out. There's some lap cars in front of me, so I figure, well, they're for us. Well, little did I know, he's leading the race, and he's behind me. He's ready to lap me, and I'm ready to cover. I didn't get a good look at him or whatever, so I come out, clipped his front wheel, smashed the shit. I mean, I felt that.
Go ahead, Warren.
And then I went down to the track, and I was going to throw my helmet at him using the cruise lap. I don't want to throw a $300 helmet at him. So I just threw my gloves for something to do. And Bentley comes in after the race and says, "Hey, you dropped your gloves there." And then he comes over and puts his arm around me and says, "Come on, let's go have a beer."
Okay, Dave. Dave Danza, last thoughts on today. You're racing, anything?
Glad it was a good turnout. I mean, I love the stories. I love all history and stuff about racing, so this has been a pretty cool day. You know, it's been a dream to just sit up here with these type of people up here. I mean, people I looked up. I sat up in turn 4 for 20 years and just get to watch these guys race for all these years, especially 80s and 90s, so it's really cool.
Eddie, last thoughts from you?
My whole life, Oswego Speedway was just no regrets. Great place to go. All my kids go to the races with me on Saturday night.
That's always a good thing. You were with your dad. It was always nice to see your dad. And your dad was my favorite driver all time. 3 track championships and just a nice man. But he was with you in the pits all the time.
Yeah.
John?
You ask these guys about their favorite race, and of course it's not fun to come back from a wreck the previous week and win the next week, but we have been lucky enough to do that. I think 3 times. Brandon mentioned it earlier with Dave, he mentioned that Joey Payne took out Otto, the last race of the year. You know, we had run 3 cars for Classic a few times, and every time I've done it, I look at my buddy, I go, "Don't ever let me do this again," right? Because it's a circus, right? So we were debating on whether to bring 2 or 3 for Classic in 2 weeks. When Otto got in the wall, and it was kind of a dirty deal, I thought. I didn't tell Otto, but I gathered all the troops, like, everybody take off work, we're going to Otto's, I want 3 cars here, right? So I was mad, right? So we get the 3 cars for Classic, and I happened to be walking through Tech that day, and I told the crew, I go, "Get ready for a lot of blue in here." All full of it, right? And that day we came in first and second in the Classic, and so to come back from that wreck and pull off, I think that, I don't know if it was 11 or 12, but it was one of the 1-2 finishers that we had there at Classic. That was one of my favorite races, you know.
Otto?
Echoing a lot of these guys, I feel very fortunate. Been a lot of hard work, been a lot of fun. I'm very thankful for the career that I've had to this point, especially Oswego. To go there as an outsider and become somebody and leave a mark, it's been an accomplishment in racing.
Warren?
I'd like to say thanks to everybody for coming to this event. Thanks for being invited. Just great running against all these guys over the years, and met a lot of super people over the years that are still my friends, and great to come away from racing with a lot of good friends.
Let's hear it for Allison, Slow, Bentley, Warren, Brandon Bellinger, Dave Danzer, Eddie Bellinger, John Nicotra, Otto Siddeley, and Warren Codium. Thank you for being with us. Make it to your favorite racetrack this year. Thank you.
This episode is brought to you in part by the International Motor Racing Research Center. Its charter is to collect, share, and preserve the history of motorsports, spanning continents, eras, and race series. The center's collection embodies the speed, drama, and camaraderie of amateur and professional motor racing throughout the world. The center welcomes serious researchers and casual fans alike to share stories of race drivers, race series, and race cars captured on their shelves and walls and brought to life through a regular calendar of public lectures and special events. To learn more about the center, visit www.racingarchives.org. This episode is also brought to you by the Society of Automotive Historians. They encourage research into any aspect of automotive history. The SAH actively supports the compilation and preservation of papers, organizational records, print ephemera, and images to safeguard, as well as to broaden and deepen the understanding of motorized, wheeled land transportation through the modern age and into the future. For more information about the SAH, visit www.autohistory.org. We hope you enjoyed another awesome episode of Break Fix Podcast, brought to you by Grand Touring Motorsports. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or get involved, be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Grand Touring Motorsports. And if you'd like to learn more about the content of this episode, be sure to check out the follow-on article at gtmotorsports.org. We remain a commercial-free and no annual fees organization through our sponsors, but also through the generous support of our fans, families, and friends through Patreon. For as little as $2.50 a month, you can get access to more behind-the-scenes action, additional pit stop minisodes, and other VIP goodies, as well as keeping our team of creators fed on their strict diet of Fig Newtons, Gummy Bears, and Monster. So consider signing up for Patreon today at www.patreon.com/GT Motorsports. And remember, without you, none of this would be possible.